Hello, everyone. This is episode 3 of podcast series by BL Inside Circle. BL stands for Business Leadership, and myself and Akshat Bansal, we represent students from IIM Kozhikode BL program, which is a one-year residential program for students who want to come. They must have an experience of more than 3 years. So our today's guest is Mr. Munjal Savla. My old connection with him is that he was my super senior in college, though we never interacted in college during my engineering. So we were part of the same team called as Oran Racing India, and from then the journey of Munjal has been very, very inspirational and very, very different, unlike most of us. So after engineering, Munjal left for doing MS in Europe, in Netherlands to be precise. He was a race driver in between, and then he's back to being an entrepreneur right now in Mumbai, based out of Mumbai right now. So we have a good amount of time with Munjal. So let's see. So my first question to Munjal, you is, uh, just give a more proper intro about you. I must have covered very, very basic points which we just discussed on the call, or maybe your LinkedIn profile. So can you just give us a very, very brief intro about yourself?
Yeah, thanks. I think you basically just told my life journey of 10 years in 10 seconds. But I'll just probably elaborate a bit more. So I did my mechanical engineering in Mumbai, and after that, actually, I took a 3-year break. I was racing for 3 years at the national level in the Indian National Racing Championship with Volkswagen India. Interestingly, at that point in time, I had a job, but the job from my college, but the job did not allow me to spend enough time racing, so I quit that uh, immediately. Unfortunate, but that's how it is. And in fact, I was working with a company called TeamBHP.com. It's India's largest automotive forum, and I was effectively working like a automotive journalist, and was probably their first employee, if I'm not wrong. And we had a great time. Actually, that's where I I realized that I love analysis, and I got into analysis of car sales in India. And in fact, till today, on the website, on their forum, every monthly car sales are published. All those graphs, the analysis was designed by me 11 years back now. They still use it, which is great. That means at least I did a good job. Post that, I went for my masters, and in something called management of technology. It's an MS program, but I wanted to mix it because I realized that I'm more better. I mean, let's say better off as an administrator or someone who combines not only technical parts but combines the other business elements into it, but did not want to go for a full-fledged MBA. So this is a very, let's say, it combines technology, policy, and management into one course. So and plus the university has a focus on, let's say, climate challenges, etc. Hence, and a lot of policy oriented focus also. So it was very fascinating to learn how things work, not only from a business perspective but from different perspectives of government, society, policy, even a bit of psychology thrown in there. It was fun. And post my masters, I came back. I started with a friend of mine. He was also studying there. We started a solar energy company. Uh, did some interesting work. Struggled quite a lot. Eventually became consultants in the same field, technical consultants, and eventually closed it down. And side by side, my racing experience helped me earn a living because I started working with kind of as a performance driving instructor with Jaguar Land Rover India. So my weekends would be I would be out 30 weekends a year, flying to various cities around India, and we would hold events for Jaguar where I would lend my driving expertise. That kept the bills paid while I struggled with the startup, but it was fun. We did some good work, and now I'm working with in kind of a management consulting come project management role with a company called Ravindra Energy, and we are I'm majorly into installation of solar powered agricultural pumps, etc. And I think we'll talk about it later on in the show.
Yes, yes. In fact, let me tell you, while you were just saying your journey or your weekend, this thing during your last so many years, this is like a dream for most of the engineering students who are part of these F Formula student teams. Because
Right.
I'm sure even in IIM Kozhikode, I have so many of my friends who have come from a mechanical background. They're part of their respective colleges' Formula student team. So being a race driver, being an engineer, and this dream of actually getting paid to drive a car. I think
Yeah.
so. This makes me ask you the next question: how difficult it is for an Indian child right now, maybe a teenager, maybe even a younger boy, maybe 8, 10 years, if he or she wants to be a professional race driver, F1 race driver, maybe in the next decade or so. How difficult it is, or how easy it is? What has been your personal experience about this?
Well, if you want to go to it's like any sport. If you want to get to the top, you have to start really young. Okay, you can't be like I started properly racing when I was 21. So it
This is
was
very
more
good.
more like a hobby rather than if I at that point in time I definitely did not think of making this my career because I was already too late to be at this level. Although I was racing at the national level, but there were others who were 5 years younger than me and who had 6 years of experience. So you get the get the difference. But if someone wants to start and go right at the top with any sport, as with any sport, you have to start really young. The challenge with racing, especially, it's a challenge world over. It's a very expensive sport. There are no two ways about it. It is expensive, so not only do you need talent in terms of driving, you also need some kind of financial backing, maybe from family, maybe from sponsors, from somewhere, to really go ahead in the sport. So you need both of these things and a lot of luck. As luck is, I think, constant for any kind of career or sport, but it's talent and money. In India, we really don't have much of a racing culture. Uh, Literally, I would if someone would win a race in the national championship, it would be in the newspaper probably. I mean, back in the day, newspaper, now online, but a very small column in one of the sports pages somewhere just mentioning the name and that's about it. So it's really we don't really have a racing culture here. We used to have, actually, back in the 60s 70s, there used to be thousands of spectators for racing. I mean, most people don't know this, but uh, those were the days where people like Vittal Malia and those people used to race, and it used to be big because you would have a lot of spectators and all. I mean, there are articles if you want to go and read about these things. But now, even if there are no spectators, there is no uh, let's say reach, and hence sponsorship becomes difficult. So, practically speaking, it's a tough dream, but dreams are dreams, right? You're supposed to dream. You can't really think of it
Right.
practically,
Never say never. Maybe
but
we can get our next F1 driver from India, maybe 10 years or 20 years down the line, but we should not stop dreaming.
or maybe
Um,
some years down the line, we don't know what's happening with Jehan. We don't know. Maybe next year, maybe 2 years later. We don't really know.
he's young. I think he's what, 19, 20?
I think he will be 2021, probably something like that right now, because 2 years back he was with in Formula 3, he was with Lando Norris. So anyone following Formula 1, Lando Norris now drives for McLaren. So I think he should be around 20, yeah. And he's in
Interesting,
Formula 2,
interesting.
and he's a Red Bull junior driver. In fact, fun fact, he used to race for a team called Rio Racing, based in Mumbai. That is also my team. We use all these events and all that we do is through that. So when Jan was a kid, We used to be racing, although in different categories, but together back in India.
Interesting story. Interesting.
Yeah,
So when you came back and when you decided, let's be an entrepreneur, I'm really passionate about the solar energy and the sector, and you set up a company, which you told you eventually closed off. How was that journey? Because from an entrepreneurship, when you go back to a normal, maybe a corporate setup job, it's kind of a switch which is not easy for many people. So
right.
uh, how did the switch happen, and how did you cope up with the, maybe I will not call it as a failed dream, but when you wanted to reach a certain level, it did not reach at that point in time, your company?
So let's. I'll answer the second part first. We we started off the company. We at that point in time, it was 2016, I believe. Yeah, early 2016 or mid 2016. Solar energy. I would say our aim was to do residential. Sorry, not residential, commercial and industrial rooftop power plants, and the policy environment was conducive. However, people's, let's say, acceptance of solar energy wasn't, and knowledge wasn't really there. uh, right now, you don't need to really go and explain to someone why it is beneficial for them, but back in the day, most people were very skeptical if it was actually financially beneficial for them. And hence we had a tough job on our hands, and more than technical skills, it required a lot of marketing skills. uh, so the one thing I learned is sales. It's extremely important, and we did not really crack it. Yeah, dreams were big. We had a lot of innovations. Also, we were kind of uptight in our approach, where we wanted to do extremely good, technically sound work, while the competition was much more, let's say, price and cost focused. And eventually, with the consumer, that kind of won, at least from our perspective. So yeah, I mean, it was a lovely experience. We learned a lot, but no hard feelings. I mean, we had to shut it down. It's okay. It's fine. That's part of life. And eventually, actually, as I said, we became consultants. We were LIE, which is lenders independent engineer. So if you as a developer went to a bank or a non or an NBFC for a loan, they would appoint us to come and check your projects if they're technically sound. And we learned a lot doing that, because we learned two things. Firstly, how the larger players, how are they functioning? And we went all over the country, from Rajasthan to Assam to Tamil Nadu, doing these surveys and checking these sites, and it was a great learning experience. But eventually, the NBFC crisis really did us in. Uh, Very different. I mean, NBFC crisis, solar industry, but it happened, and we stopped it there. Now, coming to the second part, actually, I'm extremely lucky, because although I am now part of a much bigger firm, and in fact, it's a listed entity on the Bombay Stock Exchange, but in fact, they were my clients through the LIE program, because I was doing the technical due diligence for their projects when they wanted financial backing from NBFC. And so my relationship with them was very different. And the the person in that company who I was directly connected with, he became CEO, and somehow we got in touch again. In fact, we got in touch not for solar but for electric vehicles, funnily enough. And so I helped them a bit on that, and then eventually I started helping them on the pumps and basically business process side rather than the specific solar side, because nowadays solar industry is commoditized. There is no, it doesn't require a lot of technical innovation. It's all process management. It's rigging out the efficiencies from your processes. And specifically coming to your question, I don't feel any change, because I am extremely lucky to have all the freedom to work on my own, to develop my ideas, to get things done, and there is no typical corporatized uh, structures or things that I am really going through. Although I've never really worked in a corporate, so I don't know what I'm missing or what are you referring to. But I am extremely happy in what I do because I have all the freedom to do what I want to do effectively.
So now moving on to a few questions on the energy sector domain. So like we, there is a continuous evolution in the energy industry. So how do companies, prepare themselves for, changes in the government policies? Like in the recent times, we had changes in regulations for the drones industry, and that completely shook that industry because of the kind of regulations that are imposed. So how do companies plan for such changes in the energy domain?
You don't plan.
But there
No,
will
I
be
mean,
some contingencies, right?
so uh, I'll put it this way. Okay, extremely policy driven business. Uh, Not only is the government the largest procurer of your services, of the industry's services, but the largest influencer in everything from prices, because we have the duty structures and all, which the industry is very sensitive to major challenge that a lot of industry players were facing in the, I mean, now it's slightly better, but in the last few years was, let's say, the offtake of energy. Like, you produce the energy, someone needs to buy that energy, and that someone is generally a discom being distribution company, which is owned by the government effectively, or it's a company, because the Electricity Act 2003 changed the structure of the energy industry in India. So it's a, these discoms are companies, but they are 100% shareholding is with the government. So yeah, uh, hence from all sides, transmission, again, you are in the government domain, so you are, it's an extremely policy driven thing. Now, in this kind of an environment, I mean, this is true for all infrastructure and core industries, I believe. But in this kind of an environment, what happens is there is always a push and pull happening in terms of the intentions of the government might change, or let's say the policies change. World, there are there, and especially energy is a very environmentally sensitive subject nowadays. So a lot of let's say external factors also affect the decisions that are made by various governments, and hence really there is no real predictability sometimes in a way. But as a company, it depends on what kind of, there are various companies, right? Okay, so I mean various companies, as in various companies in different subfields. So in the energy sector, there are, especially renewable energy, there are developers. These are the people who pick up the projects, who put their money on the line, and there are contractors who are actually implementing the projects. Now the contractors really don't care about the policy, because their job is to come, install, take the money, go home. It's the developers who bear the brunt, and sometimes you just get caught off guard. Like, for example, the central government had the intention of bringing as much renewable energy as possible. State governments also had the intention of doing that. They set up policies to enable maximum renewable energy, in terms of, let's focus on rooftop sector, that is decentralized energy. I mean, it's on paper sounds amazing, right? You produce energy where you want to consume, you consume it there, no T&D losses, super. The main problem is the discoms get really hammered in this, because who goes for, so let's say, renewable energy on their roofs? The people who have the highest tariffs. These are the people who are cross subsidizing the agricultural consumers, or let's say the small home consumers who have below par. Let's say if break even tariff is X rupees, they are being given energy at something below X, while the industrial and commercial is being charged at something above X. And if these guys start taking energy from renewable sources, what the discoms finances go for a toss, because they have to keep giving the guys who need cheaper energy. So I mean, it's not that no one knows about this, but these are difficult problems to solve and they take time. So hence, some policies changes, discoms will have some kind of say in it, and it becomes a big. It's a very complicated structure here. Uh, we'll need probably 2 hours for that. I'll just put some perspective there. Now here again, I actually sometimes I feel bad for the government, because there are it's such a I mean, it's such a vast subject where so many inputs and outputs are really dependent on a lot of other factors, where you try to do something somewhere else, it kind of affects here. Uh, it's like coal and then land rights and some Supreme Court cases related to coal. Then the Supreme Court makes a decision. Then these guys have to do something which ends up affecting some power plant which was based on, you know, it's uh, it's not easy to analyze these, and sometimes uh, we shouldn't really go and start analyzing a lot of it. I feel, because it never does justice to the actual situation. Uh, there are too many factors in here. Uh, so yeah, that's where I am, because it's very easy to make a nice report ki aisa hua, waisa hua, ye hua. I'm using Hindi. I hope that's fine. But this happened, that happened. While in reality, it's almost like gamification, right? Some random things are happening and random effects happen. Not easy to actually come up to conclusions with this.
Okay, so now can in on your LinkedIn profile there was a mention of data analytics in the irrigation industry. Can you please elaborate on that project?
So it's not a project per se. What it's How would I put it? So I started with when I started working on this project, we realized certain shortcomings, because when you start working in the rural sector, so our these solar powered pumps are going to farms which do not have traditional sources of energy at the farm. That is basically no electricity connection at the point of the water source. So generally, these are slightly more remote, or let's say even within a rural setting, energy or electricity might be coming to the village, but a farm which is 4 kilometers or 5 kilometers of the village might not have electricity going there. So this is where uh, the irrigation, solar powered irrigation pumps are being put. Now, I specifically work in Maharashtra, so we currently, so we it's there are names which most of the people haven't even heard who have been living here forever, and we are going to village and we are installing. Now the problem here is it's not a technical challenge, but it's more of an administration challenge on how do you track your project, how do you track the progress of your project, the operations of your pumps, when all your staff and is distributed and sometimes in areas with low or no network, etc. So that is where I kind of started with. I created some no code apps which worked offline as well, which allowed our staff and contractors, etc., to interact with the systems that we had built to track the project. Now, once we started collecting all this data, we realized there is a treasure trove of data here. And not only that, each of these pumps now it is government mandated. So these are schemes of the government, right? It's not a private. I mean, we are effectively empaneled in a government scheme to go and install these pumps. So, as per mandate, all of these pumps need to have a remote monitoring system. That is, there is a SIM card. It tracks the operations of the pump, how much time, how much water has the pump given out, when is the farmer turning it on, turning it off, etc. Now, all this data is being uploaded for thousands and thousands of pumps. It is uploaded onto the servers, and we also get this data from the servers, because very smartly our, let's say, our payments are linked to to this data coming, because obviously the government wants to ensure that no one is cheating them. So then now you have amazing data which is geotagged, which which is usage data of how much water is being, or let's say how much farmers are turning on these pumps, and you can do amazing data analysis on this. I mean, you can predict from rainfall maybe to water tables. I mean, there is so much to do, and we haven't even started.
Uh, so that's it from my side. Dheer, any questions further? Any further questions?
No, I think we are good to go. A perfect mix of both the worlds: racing, engineering, entrepreneurship, and now energy. We'll have a formal conclusion by Akshat Bansal. Thank you.
On behalf of the PGPBL class of 2022 and BL Insight Circle, we thank Mr. Munjal Savla for taking his precious time to interact with us. We had a number of takeaways from the racing industry to entrepreneurship and on the importance of sales in pushing out the products in an entrepreneurial world, in understanding the market requirements and more importantly the customers. We also had an interesting discussion on the energy industry, on how the policy and the government impact the energy sector as a whole. Thank you, sir.
Well,
Thank you
thanks.
so much.
Yeah,
Yes.
this was good. I hope the listeners enjoyed, or let's say, and keep enjoying the talk that we had. And best of luck.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.